attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Breston and I'm the Business Technology Transition Manager for Ranger 4. Ranger 4, as you guys know, has a long history of working in the DevOps space, and I have an even longer history of working with ITIL and Lean and Agile methodologies. And with that, the Agile Service Management movement or subset of how to merge these three things is starting to take off, and we at Ranger 4 are proud to be part of that with the DevOps Institute. The Agile Service Management concept came about to try to address the IT challenges of today. We looked at the service management processes and practices that organizations are doing based on IT service management. And we made a good start toward improving the way that we improve IT service and quality, but there are a lot of things we could do to reduce risk and help people go faster if they wanted to. Help people remove technical debt faster, help people introduce new products and features, help people improve business processes. So this is what service management is about, to try to help people get an approach such that organizations can effectively and efficiently do what they need to do to be an organization. Think about all the different businesses that are out there and the different ways that they use IT and the challenges that they have in that. When I first started my IT career, there was no mobile technology or wearable technology. The concept of having a phone that had more power than my data center were things that I read about in a comic book or saw in a movie, and now it's everyday reality. I remember when virtualization first took off, and that was very exciting to us, and being able to, create an API that could blow away an entire data center and put it back again in just a matter of minutes really helped from a business continuity perspective, but more importantly helped when we were working with the service providers or our internal development teams to try to create new products and features for the financial services organizations that I was at. How to do social collaboration and communication across your entire organization and out to your customers. How to deal with the fact that people aren't necessarily where they're supposed to be anymore. They're not necessarily at work. I mean, UBS made an announcement where they want to use virtual technology such that their customers can still interact with employees, but their employees don't have dedicated desks anymore. Instead, let's take that very expensive office space and let's create new ways of using that office space, that floor space, to let people collaborate and communicate to create new products and features and let the customers in. So let's, change the way that people work by the use of technology. And I'm sure that many of you out there have more and more examples that you could share with us. And this is becoming a faster and faster cycle of change, and the IT service management movement needs to add agility to the way that it's working. The customary view of a service is the definition in the black box. That way of delivering value to a customer. Well, what do we mean by value? How do we create value? What is value? It's not just money. It's time and effort. It's customer satisfaction. It's employee satisfaction. It's the removal of the nonsense in an organization from a process or a way of work perspective. And it's not just IT processes that we're talking about here. The onboarding process, the purchasing process, financial management processes, budgeting, funding, all those different ways of working that realistically cannot do their job well without technology. This is what we're trying to get to in being able to manage and use that technology in such a way that we can help people be better, faster, safer. Now, for those of you who follow Ranger 4, you know that we have a polygamous marriage concept. And for those of you who have read or are reading now the DevOps Handbook, you'll know that it talks a lot about the merger of frameworks, the merger of the Agile movement, the merger of the Lean movement, and the merger of the IT service management movement to help organizations govern what they want to do in such a way that they mitigate risk, IT service management, but still provide the agility and capability to be able to make change happen quickly, new products, features, the removal of technical debt, the introduction of a new business process to meet a regulatory change, in such a way that they remove the nonsense and improve the customer and employee relationships, and that they do this in an iterative cycle of change that's very quick. So how do you blend IT service management, Agile, and Lean together? This is what we're trying to get to in DevOps, and we're going to spend a little bit about the IT service management and Agile aspects in Agile service management. I just wanted to float this by to you. My boss, Helen Beal, was doing a webinar the other day, and she hadn't realized that the term DevOps was now coming up to almost a decade. I'm sure there are several of you that are on the phone that say, well, Agile was actually being done DevOps was actually being done before the famous tweet by Patrick Dubois. And I would agree with that we could trace organizations back into the late 90s that were doing DevOps. But it's an interesting timeline of major events to show how this movement of DevOps, the interrelationships between Agile, Lean, and IT service management have been happening over the last decade. Ranger 4 goes into organizations and they say, we want to be Agile. We look back at them and go, what does that mean? And they're using the term Agile to mean we want to have agility and we want to have the capability to be able to do something and not have to wait a whole long time to do it or spend a whole lot of money to do it. We want our technology to be able to enable us to do what we need to do when we need to do it, because we have to be effective and efficient. We need to have, be able to respond to customer demand or regulatory change, or help our employees do their work better. So this agility is paramount to the success and the perception of technology teams and groups across organizations. This was recognized when people got together to create the Agile Manifesto. And while you may or may not say that they inadvertently left out the IT service management and operations teams, I may or may not agree with that. I do think that they recognize that if they're going to create something, it needs to run on something. If they're going to create something, they need an environment to be able to create it. So, the argument of did they really leave us out, or did they try to get us to consider that we needed to talk to them more? We couldn't continue to create processes and impose it upon them. They wanted to create software that was working, and they wanted to be able to prove that it was working much faster than having to go to a change approval board or have a whole lot of documentation or fill in a big long spreadsheet with information. They wanted to be able to collaborate with the customer at the beginning as much as we were collaborating with the customer at the end via the service desk. They wanted to be able to respond to change without having to have a big long project management plan They want to be able to take these requests and do them, give them out to somebody, move to the next thing. So I don't think there's anything on here that we as a service management organization would disagree with. We want all of that as well. We want to be able to take the development of an idea until that idea is fully operational. And we want to provide the agility and capability to do that in such a way that organizations can benefit from the technology that they have or need to be able to service its customers or improve the way that their employees work. And that's what these movements are about. These movements or these philosophies or these methods are all about trying to get organizations to do better, faster, safer technology. And do it in such a way that they can see the nonsense, remove the nonsense, visualize the work that's happening, help to prioritize the good stuff over the bad stuff, and be able to release it out in such a way that it's safe and when it's needed. If you put it on a flat map, and remember that even though the lines are going from left to right, these are actually cycles of change. You need to be able to do this in such a way that you can collaborate and communicate, but think about the fact of the different movements and how they are on, your development to production life cycle. And even capturing the idea, move the lines even further to the left. What is the capture of the idea and how do you make that happen? So that whole entire process now becomes better, faster, safer, and this is what Agile Service Management is about. So we take the definition that we had earlier on service management, and we go, you're right. We walked into an organization the other day, or a couple months ago actually, and they had 6 different change approval boards in the business before they passed it to the IT change approval board, and that was just in the idea and request phase. It hadn't even gotten to service design yet. How in the world can that be considered just enough? You need to be able to have agility and capability. That's what the organization wanted. The first thing we asked them to do was kill their boards. How do you take a business case and turn it into a one-page document? How do you go and create enough structure and control so that there's not anarchy, enough structure and control to pass an audit, enough structure and control to provide products and features out to your customers in a way that the technology teams take ownership and control of that, but the business is still accountable for its overall use. This is what we're trying to get to in Agile Service Management. This is where we consider if we're doing things at the same pace and cadence as the rest of the technology teams are, then our processes are going to enable them to be able to go better, faster, safer. Remember that it's not an iteration if you only do it once. And I'm going to give you an example of that on this screen, because this is the way we used to work. We used to have these big process teams who would create these really cool diagrams, and they would go to 5 levels down. If you push the reject change button, that created a new set of pictures. And if you pushed a button on that, that created another set of pictures. And it was just nonsense. So how can we do this in such a way that the people that need to be involved are involved in helping us create a process that's sensible to be able to manage or do change? Incident and problem management are subsets of each other. The only thing that's important to the customer is that it's resolved, resolution management. But how can you take these 3 aspects and put them together into something that's called resolution management and have the right change that's involved, approval that's involved, so that you don't introduce more problems? That's what you should be trying to do here. And you can only do that if you collaborate with people and talk to people at each step. So Agile Service Design would say, all right, we know that we understand how to introduce a change via technology. We can do that with our eyes closed now. We're not very good at capturing that change request. We're not very good at capturing that incident request and getting all the information that we need. So let's just break that apart. Let's go talk to people and let's just play with this iteratively such that, okay, for this thing, we need to capture that. Okay, did we do that? What type of monitoring do we have on top of that? How do we know that that was right? And let's release just that step out. And when people are comfortable with that, and we think that we've got a standard way of working across, you might have some local some local variances, but a standard way of working that people agree. Let's go back and let's talk about, assess, and approve the change management, the change for that. I mean, there's a very big organization that's global and highly regulated that for their web services, no CAB, no change approval board. From the time an idea is raised until that idea goes live, there is no change approval board. Absolutely blown away with that. It took them 1.5 years to get to the point to where they were comfortable with the concept, and they're still iteratively trying to get, there are a couple of change approval boards that are still there for very complicated change, but predominantly speaking, they looked at the definition of a standard request or a pre-approved request and worked very, very hard to try to say, if in a sprint you're comfortable that it has been tested and it is ready to go live, and the product owner is happy with that, then why take it to a change approval board? Let's let it go live. So how do you automate that whole entire process? You can only do that in small chunks. So each one of these steps, or even the steps within the steps, now become user IDs, user stories. How do you take each one of these steps and turn them into a user story, put it into your product backlog, have it prioritized, and then do that as part of the sprint? Well, one way to do that is to introduce roles that we think are missing. So the DevOps Institute, Scrum organizations, IT service management, lean movement, range of 4, we still have to close the loop between dev and ops. Most organizations think that Scrum teams are just a group of developers. Or testers, how do we force, or not force, how do we get people to get that if you're going to have the development of an idea until it's fully realized, that you might want to have the right processes in place, and you might want to have the right service approach, service thinking from employees and customers' point of view. So let's introduce 2 new roles. Let's introduce the role of a process owner. Let's introduce the role of a service manager. Now, argumentatively speaking, they could be the same person, they could be from the same team, but let's put them into the team. And they don't have to live there daily. They definitely don't have to live there daily. But they do need to be available such that the process owner and the product owner work hand in hand. You want to be able to do this? Well, we need to give you a process to be able to do that. It could be purchasing, it could be onboarding, it could be the provisioning of an environment. How can we do that? How can we both have rights over the product backlog in such a way that we're enabling the organization and their technology movement? And how can we then work with the Scrum team, the Scrum manager and the Agile service manager, who are now partners in crime, to be able to, during the sprint, be able to work with the relevant people at the right time in such a way that even if you've managed to create a totally outsourced environment or managed service environment, that those teams can work together to have the right technology at the right time at the right place, and at the end of that have something that's usable by the organization, a new way of working to complement the technology, the new product or feature that you're giving it. So this is what we're trying to get to in this. And we're talking about roles like Agile Process Owner and Agile Service Manager. And we're working with the Scrum Alliance and Scrum Org to be able to have those individuals as fully qualified in Scrum as a Scrum Master or a product owner as if you were to send those individuals off to a course. And like all good movements should be, you have to practice what you preach. So we understand that it's not going to happen overnight. We understand that it's going to take practice, patience, and perseverance. We understand that it's going to take leadership approval and coaching. Pick one process as a learning experience. I like to pick a business process. I like looking at the onboarding process of every organization because every organization thinks that their onboarding process for a new employee could be improved. And technology is the best way or a way of being able to improve that once people are starting to talk to individuals across the organization. So pick a process. Pick a way that the onboarding process now has an owner. And I like asking HR to own it. After all, it's a human resources process. And then working with them, let's try to figure out a way to get technology to be at the right place and at the right time so that when employees start work, they start work. There's not a whole lot of wait time between coming into work, getting your profile, having the right user rights, being able to work, have the right technology, and starting to service a customer or do your job. What teams do those individuals have to then join? What level of training do they need to be able to get people that capability and that agility into the onboarding process or into the technology that's going to enable what I just said? What step can we try? Can we try to create a role profile that makes sense across the organization? Is there a role catalog linked to various services? And don't rush. The imposition of a deadline is difficult. And what you need to do instead is you need to think about, doing this in such a way that people are getting it. Because once they get it, then you'll find that people want to go better, faster, safer. But the first few times that you do this, let it happen. Let it practice. And, tell people about the results. And even if you're not completely successful, at least tell people about the effort and what you learned. And that now gets that agile, lean, IT service management, DevOps, cultural collaboration, the right type of flow, the right type of feedback, the right type of experimentation and learning across your organization. And the DevOps Institute is with Ranger 4 and all of its partners has worked very hard to go and create some courses to help individuals learn the main concepts behind what we're talking about in this webinar. The DevOps Foundation to lay the right common language about what is DevOps, an Agile Service Manager that could face off against a Scrum Master any day of the week, and an Agile Process Owner that could help a product owner do their job on a regular basis. So these are fully approved roles across both movements of IT service management and Agile, aka Scrum. And these courses, fully available now, 2 days each, can help you with that. And for more information, you can go to the Ranger 4 website. FYI, exciting new thing. I had to add this into the slide set. The DevOps Institute was at the DevOps Enterprise Summit in San Francisco. And this week they announced these courses. How do you create a continuous delivery individual that is helping organizations create the things that they need to be able to, be in a state to release anywhere into their environment a new piece of technology? I like thinking about the fact that no matter what piece of technology you introduce someplace, it's now your legacy. How are you going to deal with it the next day? So continuous delivery architect is going to be able to help organizations. Testing is the heart of every organization. How do you test the fact that you have a good idea? How do you test the fact that you're designing what you need to have against that idea? How do you know that it's gone live properly and it's actually being used? And if it's not being used, get rid of it. So the DevOps test engineer is going to help for that. Security is paramount in everybody's mind nowadays, and this role should underpin cybersecurity courses and other frameworks in the security movement. Leadership is paramount to the success of any change practice, be it Agile, Lean, IT service management, or DevOps. So what does it mean to be a DevOps leader? Ranger 4 is proud to be helping to create that particular course because it's near and dear to my heart. And then DevOps professional. If you want to have a subset of all of these different skills and you want to be able to apply them quickly, maybe a slightly longer course then would be the DevOps professional course to be able to help you do what you need to do on a day in, day out basis. So these are courses that you should look for in the first quarter of 2017. And Ranger 4 and the DevOps Institute will be announcing them accordingly before the end of the year as to when they'll be available. In recap, the DevOps loop, the idea until realization. Agile service management is going to help you capture that idea without having to write a big, long business case and help you get it approved such a way that you can start to think about designing it, think about how it's being tested, think about when it's going to be able to go live. So integration and validation. And as it goes live into the development environment or as it goes live into the integration environment, how do you then move it to the delivery environment? How do you then move it to the production environment? All those things in the operation state such that the realization, the capture of that value can be measured, and anything that needs to be improved can also be captured and fed back into the idea or product backlog phase. So this again is a very quick loop, and Agile service management is one of the big things that will underpin the success of this loop and its ability to be able to go better, faster, safer. Some additional resources. Obviously, Ranger 4 has always adding things to its website, different blogs, more webinars like this. Please use them. We're all trying to get to the goal of customer satisfaction and employee happiness. And remember to be DevOps-tastic. I see that we have one question. I'm going to answer that one because it's a good question, and it's an interesting question because the question is, where do you put the Agile Service Manager and the Agile Process Owner? Are they part of the IT Service Management team or are they part of the development team? Well, remember that Agile is about having the right set of people at the right place at the right time to introduce an aspect of technology for an organization. So I would say that you just put them into the teams that you have. Don't try to put them into one part of your organization or another part of your organization. Use this as an opportunity to break down the silos. Use this as an opportunity to integrate them into the teams that are creating and managing, delivering, and servicing technology for your organization. And that will go a long way toward getting you toward DevOps or Agile service management. Does not appear to be any more questions, but if you do have questions, please send them to me and I'm more than happy to answer them. On behalf of Ryan and myself, I'd like to say thank you everybody for attending this webinar and look for new ones. They'll be coming out every 2 weeks. Thank you.